Welcome to Picks with the Professor, the sports betting show hosted by a real statistics professor. With me is Cousin Jared. Bowls Part 2. And this will, unfortunately, be our last college episode of the season, as we are covering bowls here this last week of December, early January, all the New Year's stuff, the playoff quarterfinals, and then a couple of games after that. There will be 3 more games not covered on the show, semis in the championship. We will have picks and all of that over on Dub Club. Cousin Jared, the regular season recaps on the screen. Bowl season has not been kind to us the last couple days. Otherwise, we had talked a little bit about that. Just didn't seemingly get any breaks on Saturday. North Carolina's quarterback get hurt. When we had the over in that one, Boston College had so many chances, just couldn't get it done. The day before, Oklahoma, started off 14-zip, moving the ball, and then just kind of stopped playing. I want to hear your perspective on that, Cousin Jared, because I know you probably have some thoughts.
Yeah, and I don't know how many games there were last week. Maybe it was like 14 games, 15 games, something like that. Basically, that would equate to 2 time windows during a normal college football Saturday. And if maybe you would have told me that we would, and if you would have told me that we had a very poor 1 or 2 time window on a college football Saturday, I would have said, so like, okay, well, tell me something new. Like that's a common thing to have a really bad window like that. So it stings because those are the only games that are going on for the whole week. It's not like you've got 15 more games after that. You can kind of wash that taste out of your mouth. So I'm not too concerned about it. Just got to kind of keep it all in mind. It's all about sample size, and it just feels worse because the games are more spread out.
I think we had this exact discussion last year. The first part of bowl season goes well for us. So we talked about the same thing. Pains of it's like it's like you said, it's a third of a Saturday slate almost. And so, but it doesn't take away that we focus on these that much more. But if I remember correctly, last year things went a lot better at the back part. So hopefully we can continue that. Here into these with some of the bigger schools playing. Again, we do have a player-based model that is very important for bowl season. A lot of opt-outs. We've been doing all the legwork we can to figure out who's playing, who's not for the playoff, who's injured, who's not. And so we're not saying we're perfect, but we have a pretty good handle on that, and that's really changed some of the projections. One we'll talk about today. Average rate's 100, as you see on screen, higher implies more points. We are projecting the average game. One game is unknown, and bowl season, that's even more true. So that's what we always say. Just because we're at the end of the season, we're going to stick to the same units and the same principles that we've done all season long. We're not going to change that up anymore. And that holds you. You can't be overconfident in these because the variance is just through on bowl games. Anything is good, better, third price, remember, for some of these games. The model gives A, B, love like her when we choose the plays. We have more plays over on Dub Club if you are interested. The Honor Roll All Access package gets everything I've got, a bunch of information, probabilities, price thresholds, summary notes, all sorts of goodies. On the link in the show description, will get you half off your first month. This is a little preview of what you will get here. This type of information. We also have a chart form with a little bit less of the variables there. This is I did not update that. Actually, this is the one from last week, Rutgers in Kansas State. I took a new picture. I don't think I uploaded the new graphic, but the first game, Alabama, Michigan. That would have been what the graphic was of. We're going to get this one going here. With Alabama winning by an average of 18.6, according to the model, the correct number is 13.5, like 13.5. A-grade play, not one of our top plays, but an A-grade player for Alabama to cover against Michigan. Cousin Jared, this is obviously a big mismatch here. Alabama's a very good team, and there's the talk of should they have made the playoff without relitigating all of that, and the fact that the playoff should reward deserving teams who what's happened on the field in the wins and losses. They are one of the more talented teams in the country. They are one of the top 12 talented teams. We've known that. That's why Sideline still has them number 7. They're a really good team. Michigan, a shell of themselves from last year, finished strong. We know Alabama's the much better team. Jared, what I want to know from you is, how do you feel about landing such a big number like this, 13.5? Because if Alabama doesn't come out motivated, where their heads at, that sort of thing, that number can seem really big if we're not up double digits at the half, you know?
Yeah, I definitely agree with that, and I think we even at some point during the regular season we were just like we're done with laying double digit numbers. It just hasn't worked out well for us. But my thing here is that in general, when you have two named schools like this, the opt-outs and the transfers in a non-playoff game, the opt-outs and the transfers are generally going to offset each other. Both schools are going to have, an equal number of people leave for the draft, roughly. Each team will roughly have the same number of people choose to they're going to transfer, so they leave the team or whatever. That is not the case.
Quarterback is the exception to that rule, of course.
Yes, of course. And that is not the case with these two teams, though. Michigan, almost every offensive and defensive player of note has opted out because they will be entering the draft. And so Michigan is going to be without a number of big playmakers in this game. Alabama, on the other hand, they have had a couple of transfers, but on the whole, even the people that are entering the draft have said that they're going to stick around and they're going to play in this game. And so you're really going to have a mostly full strength Alabama team going up against a Michigan team that is definitely missing some key pieces. You see Michigan's defense, number 34 right there. That's the lowest that a Michigan defense has been in quite some time. And that's because they're missing like their top 3 or 4 defenders at this point. They've all opted to leave early to start preparing for the draft. So I think this is just a big mismatch in favor of Alabama. I think with Michigan, you might also see a hangover from the Ohio State game because clearly that was their Super Bowl at that point in time, and this game is just kind of like on the cake. If they win or lose, I don't think they really care since they beat Ohio State, whereas Alabama has a chance to kind of prove, hey, look, we should have been in the playoff. We just, soundly defeated a team like Michigan in a bowl game. We should have been in a playoff. I don't want to give the impression this is a lock. We have seen Alabama is, apt to being very up and down this season, as illustrated by some of their outcomes. But on the whole, I still like Alabama quite a bit in this one.
I will use some numbers to kind of back up what you just said. At the end of the regular season, Alabama rated at a 130 overall. Now they're a 129. Michigan was a 115. Now they're a 106. That's quite a fall. Wow. They were around 20 or so in the model, maybe 18, 19 in that ballpark. Now they're on to 44. And so, like you said, that's been a big drop for them. Alabama has been less of one, not a ton there. If Alabama has most of its guys playing, if they show up focused, and we've seen some of the next Alabama teams do this on a couple of years, they were left out of the playoff. They took it as a mission to go out there and destroy the opponent, win 35-zip, that sort of thing. You also sometimes see schools in this scenario struggle to be motivated when they were just left out. And so you just never know how that's going to go. But like you said, a key thing that we can't ignore here, because we don't know how that's going to play out, is what we do know, which we do know the opt-outs and that massively favoring Alabama. And that's why we think it's closer to a 20-point win on average than a 13-point win. It's really for half a grade.
And you talk about this. We talk about this in college basketball, at least, that no team's as good as their best few games. No team's is as bad as their worst few games. I think specifically with probably the last games that you have in mind with these teams. Obviously, I don't think Michigan's as good as they looked, or maybe their defense isn't as strong as they looked against Ohio State. And I don't think Alabama is as bad as they looked against Oklahoma. I know that wasn't their last game of the season, but I'm sure that's the one that's sticking in everybody's head right now. Is how bad they looked against Oklahoma.
Yeah, absolutely. That's very, very well said. Of course, the other thing I will add, I think Ohio State showed us in the first round against Tennessee, what they can be, and they definitely were not that against Michigan. So there is also that of note, right?
Right.
Very, very different Ohio State team, which in fact how we view Michigan since last time we saw Ohio State. They look so dominant. We'll hold the Ohio thoughts for just a minute. We are going to do all 4 playoff games. We'll start off here the Tuesday, New Year's Eve night game. Penn State, Boise State. We aren't taking a side. Penn State is about a 10, 11-point favorite model. It's right in line with that. Instead, we're going to go over 53. It's a B grade pick. The model says 56. Penn State doesn't really go fast, but Kissinger, we kind of have said the same thing about Penn State all season. And I feel like we've been proven pretty right on it. If they play a team who kind of wants to get in a rock fight, they can do that. But when they're playing teams that have any bit of tempo whatsoever, have any bit of offense or struggle on defense, they put up points and they can give up points, unlike Penn State teams. And that's basically what we're banking on here, right?
Yeah, that's exactly right. And for me, this is mostly about, if this is a close game, if Boise State finds a way to keep this close, I think this game gets into the mid 50s, 55, 56, 58, 59, something like that. If Penn State ends up blowing them out, if Boise State ends up falling into the category, they're not, one of the top 5 teams in the country, which are the teams that Penn State has struggled against. If that's the case, then Penn State scoring 38 or 42 or 45 in this game, something like that. So I think there's a lot of ways that this one goes over. I will be very interested to see. Man, I feel really bad for Boise State's coaching staff, because they have Ashton Genty, who has an opportunity to set the record for, the most yards in a season, most rushing yards in a season. But obviously it's a playoff game. It's not like you can just keep feeding him the ball if it's not working. It's not like you can keep feeding him the ball if, you're down and you really need, those incomplete passes.
And this is likely to be the last game for him.
Yes. And so I don't think that's really going to have any impact on the game necessarily. But I think it's a very peculiar situation, because I think they could easily find themselves in a situation where they're going to have diverging interests. If Penn State can really stop the running game, it's like, do we stop feeding him the ball and try to pass it, or do we try to get him the record? Just an interesting subplot to this game. Mm-hmm. I'm very interested to see how Boise State's coaching staff handles that.
I think I'll echo kind of what you said and say it slightly differently, which I think is Penn State's going to score. The question is, how many times are they going to get to score? How many times are they going to get the ball? And how much success is Boise State going to have? And so that's why we're not saying Penn State team total over. I'm not saying that doesn't hit. But there's a chance Penn State doesn't hit their team total over because Boise's scoring as well. They just get fewer possessions. But if Boise State can't get going offensively, they say they really struggle to score points, Penn State's going to have so many possessions. They're going to get this number by themselves. And if Boise State scores, then it'll be, 30-30 or whatever. I don't know. 24-24, I don't know. But yeah, Penn State's going to get theirs. Their offense is good enough against an okay Boise State defense. It's Boise State's offense. That's the question. Can they score on Penn State's defense? And like you said, I think we're kind of okay either way. Obviously, we prefer them to score. It makes life easier, keeps it close, and that keeps teams trying as opposed to running it out. But even if they don't score, like you said, too much, we've got a great chance with Penn State, knowing what we've seen from them. So over 53, beat grade pick. Wednesday, New Year's Day, 1 team Eastern, Texas and Arizona State. We're to lay the 12.5 with Texas. B grade model says by 17.2. Sideline has Texas as the number 1 team in the country. Now, this waffles between Texas and Notre Dame, and I don't even know who else. So close. So right for this week, Texas is number 1. I think they barely edged out Notre Dame, who was number 1 last week. But Arizona State has been really good, but they're still nowhere near the level Texas is. Sideline's got them ranked number 24. Jared, tell us more.
I will ask this question and give you a second to look it up while I keep talking. But where does Arizona State compare to Clemson in your latest rankings there? And because when I look at this in my mind, this feels like a very, very similar situation to what we had with Clemson a couple of weeks ago, where we kind of looked at the number and we were like, this is a weird number. Do we wait on it? Like there might be an edge on the total too. Do we want to do that? And at the end of the day, like Texas is just so much better that I think the odds makers and the bettors have this mindset of, oh, this team made the playoff, Clemson or Arizona State. They must be really good. There must be something that we're not seeing here. When the reality is no, you're seeing it all. Texas is just on another level than Clemson. They're on a different level, in my opinion, than Arizona State. So this feels to me just like the Clemson game did, where, you're kind of tempted. It's in between 10 and 14. You're like, it's an odd number. And it's just like, you just need to lay the points and not think about it. That's my thoughts. Does my thought do the numbers back up my thought there? Is Clemson a similar team to Arizona State?
Yes, absolutely. Sideline has them at number 17, so Sideline actually thinks Clemson's a little bit better. I know some people might think that's a little bit crazy, but even if Arizona State's a little bit better than them, they have been playing really well lately, and I mean no disrespect to them, the model's just not convinced quite yet that they're to that point. But even if they are, they profile pretty similarly. Offense for Arizona State, number 32 for Clemson, number 24. Defense for Arizona State, number 24 for Clemson, 18. So even if the model's underestimating Arizona State on offense and defense a little bit, you basically get to what the model thinks of Clemson. And the same thing. It's one of those where it's like, we should just lay this number, and it worked out like that. So I think you're spot on with that pretty similar, even slightly different how they do it, of course, because Scadaboo is unlike anything that Clemson has. But just in terms of how good they are, very similar to Clemson.
Yeah, and I
not different, agree. Not like one-sided where the offense is really good or the defense is really good either.
Right, and I completely agree with you. Like Scadaboo is very good. I've obviously been immensely impressed with him. This is one of those seasons where I wish they could have had like 8 guys go to New York for the Heisman Trophy. I feel like Scadaboo should have been there. I feel like Daly from Army should have been there. There were so many guys that were at least deserving of being a finalist in my opinion. But anyway, Texas's defense, you see that at number 62. Probably one of the best ratings that Sideline has doled out for any defense since we've been doing this show. I'm not sure, with as good as Scadaboo is, I'm not sure that's going to make a major difference against this Texas defense.
Yeah, I think that's kind of the point. Is like, I'm with you. I love Scadaboo. I think he's fantastic. But like, Iowa State, we saw against Miami in the bowl game struggles against the run. That's just kind of what they've been all season. We talked about all season how Iowa State's defense is a little bit worse than their offense this year. First time we've been saying that in forever, right? It's different from that Arizona State team. So the last time you saw Arizona State, he was running all over Iowa State. It's like, but a lot of teams, that Iowa State defense wasn't that good. So it'll just be a rude awakening from that last game in regards to the caliber of defense he's going to face. I feel like this is going to be like Genty in that first game that he played against real defense at ULV, and they stacked the line and put him down. It was like, hey, this is a rude way. I'm not saying it'll be the exact same thing, but Texas defense will be just such a different challenge for him. So we are laying 12.5 for Texas. B grade pick. We have one of our top plays of the week, Oregon here on the money line, A grade, plus 110. We have, this is one of our favorites, the WTF game, wrong team favorite. We got Oregon winning 53% of the time. Plus 110 is a great investment anytime you've got anything north of 50%. These teams have already played this year. Obviously, it was a very close game then. The model projects this to be a very close game. I think the interesting thing to me is that Ohio State finally played their best game of the season, lived up to all the potential we've been talking about, and the model didn't take that and be like, oh, now they're the best team in the country. It bumped them up, and it's like, oh, now maybe you can compete with these, but it's not overreacting. I think this line is a little bit of an overreaction to the Tennessee game. Not to say Ohio State didn't play great. They absolutely did, but it's possible that Oregon's just in a different class than Tennessee do.
Yeah. I would agree with that. And my thing with Ohio State is, actually, I think these two teams are, in my opinion, exactly the same but completely opposite. Both immensely talented. Ohio State, though, it just comes in spurts, and when it hits, it is so beautiful. But when it goes wrong, it just looks bad. On the flip side, I feel like Oregon is just, top to bottom, the most consistent team in college football. They had the first game against Idaho that was a weird game. I will give you that. And I know me personally, I probably took too much. I looked too much into that second game of the season against Boise State, where they barely beat Boise at home, and thinking, oh man, is this Oregon team flawed? Well, of course, now turns out Boise State was pretty good there as well. So for me, this is just, I think they are equally talented. In my opinion, Oregon is much more consistent. And so the fact that I'm getting the more consistent team at plus odds, this makes me feel right. Like this makes me feel good. You're never going to feel great fading a team with as much talent as Ohio State. But like, this is one where, like, logically in your mind, you can get behind this. The best team in college football for the length of the season, getting plus odds. It's just, it's a play you got to make, in my opinion.
Yeah, I have seen so much consistently good Oregon football. Say the Wisconsin game was the one game on the road that they struggled in recently, but say for that game,
Yep.
So much in a row. I had actually forgotten about that Oregon Boise State game. So apologies for my previous or 2 segments ago or last whatever, Genty against UNLV. That was, I guess, the second real defense. He dominated Oregon. And I just forgot that happened because it was so long ago. And Oregon just looked really good. I'll summarize it, phrase it a little bit differently. When I was thinking about this, I was like, okay, if Ohio State, what we saw last week and a half ago, whatever, is real, then this is a coin toss game, and I'm getting plus 110 odds. It's going to be a great game. It's going to be an epic game. If we don't get that Ohio State, which we haven't for the other 12 games of the season, save maybe 1 or 2, I don't know, then Oregon probably wins this by double digits. So I was thinking, hey, we got a great shot to just handily win this game. And if Ohio State shows up and we have a classic, we're still at plus 110. We didn't lay anything. So, like you said, it's one of those bets you just have to make. And so that is why that is one of our top plays. Another top play in the nighttime New Year's Day game, the last of the quarterfinals, Notre Dame and Georgia. Again, we do have 2 more games after this, so don't click off when we're done with this game. 2 more games. So this was top play Notre Dame, even money. We've got them winning this 59% of the time, just like we talked about before. Wrong team favored. The model adjusting to Carson Beck being out, that's a big drop. Georgia dropping to number 8 is a big drop. They were one of the teams that was up there in the top with Carson Beck. They're still a very, very good team, but it is quite a drop. As good as Stockton looked in relief. It's we still don't have any evidence. It's just he's as good as Carson Beck is, and I know they look good. The receivers played better, blah blah blah. But Carson Beck's a better quarterback, And so the model adjustment that we've got in Notre Dame is 59% of the time. Because Jared, what's your take on this one?
So let's start with Georgia. Obviously, Carson Beck not playing, I think, really impacts Georgia's offense. We talked a lot about the season, how not the entire season, but for a good portion of the season, Sideline had Georgia as the best offense in the country, and a lot of that was because of Carson Beck, had him rated as one of the best quarterbacks in the country. But when you look at the turnovers that he had, when you listen to like some of the opposing coaching staffs and the scouts, especially now they've been talking about it more since Beck declared for the draft, they were saying that he was having to shoulder more of the load because just around them, the skill position players specifically weren't as good at Georgia this year as maybe they had been the past couple of years. And if that's the case, and again, I can't necessarily see that with my eyes. Obviously, Georgia looked really good. This is just what I've read that other, people that are more knowledgeable of the game than I am have said. If that's the case, I don't think that's a good sign for Gunnar Stockton, because I don't think you're going to be able to put everything on his shoulders against this Notre Dame team who is solid in all facets of the game. In my opinion, it's Notre Dame, so there's always going to be talk about them. But if they hadn't had that loss to Northern Illinois early in the season, what would the narrative be about this Notre Dame team right now? I think so much of that, so much of what we think about them is still based on what we saw in that Northern Illinois game. But this team is for real. They have just steamrolled everybody that has been put in front of them for the length of the season since that Northern Illinois game. And I know that there's been time off between these games, but I do wonder how much of an impact the extended schedule and just the basically the schedule that Georgia has played this year, the number of tough games they have had to play, the additional round of the playoffs here. You got this game before you would even get into what normally would have been the 4-team playoff with just 2 games. So I in my mind, I feel like Notre Dame just has an edge everywhere I look in this game. Can Georgia win? Absolutely. They could win this game, but for me, without Beck, I think it's going to be an uphill charge for Georgia.
Yeah, I agree. I love this one. I've been preaching Notre Dame for weeks now. We can go back months now, maybe even. I remember we had a Notre Dame game on middle of the season, and I was like, hey, I know everyone's going to be shocked at this, but like the model has them as maybe climbing to be one of the best teams in the country. Go look at what they're doing since that Northern Illinois game, and they've just kept it up. Right. It's been so impressive. I think Ohio State can win the tournament, but you got me thinking there. If Ohio State doesn't win, then if we had a 14 playoff like last year, you would have had number 1, Georgia number 2, Texas number 3, Notre Dame number 4, and that would have been a heck of a 14 playoff. And we could just get right through the good games. Not that I'm not a fan of having more teams in the playoff, but it just kind of caught my attention. Like, whoever's going to win this thing is probably one of those 4 teams, or Ohio State. Right. That has a chance. Penn State's good. I'd be a little surprised if Penn State was able to do it. I guess Penn State does get an easier path into the semis, which helps. I don't know if people are doing futures betting here, but that obviously affects Texas and Penn State in different ways, because the other 2 teams are playing such good teams. But we love the Notre Dame team. I want to say it here in case I forget to on Discord. Pancakes, people. This is a pancakes right here on Notre Dame. So let's see if we can wake up on the second with some delicious pancakes. North Texas and Texas State. This will be Friday 3rd at 4 p.m. This will be in my old former backyard here in the DFW area. This is in Fort Worth, SMU, Frisco. I don't know where this is. Somewhere here in the DFW area, I'm pretty sure. We are going to lay 14 with Texas State. When we talk about guys opting out, this is one that it really affects. North Texas is losing starting quarterback Chandler Morris to the portal, so we assume he's not going to play. Like, who knows with these things? We've had some that we go to the portal, but they still play or whatever. So who really knows? Yeah. But assuming he does not play, that is a massive, massive loss to North Texas, who could only hang their hat on their offense. Their defense was very bad, but without Chandler Morris, their offense loses a lot as well. We've got this as a huge mismatch. Texas State's been frustrating throughout the season. They've had a lot of talent. They didn't do a lot with it. The model's still high on them. So I know there might be a little bit of hesitation. Man, we were high on Texas State all season. I think in this case, they probably have something to prove because they've been hearing that. I just don't think North Texas has enough to hang around because they are really bad at this point without Chandler Morris, according to the model. Because how do you see it?
Yeah, so and Morris is not playing. He's transferred to Virginia, so he's entered the portal. He's gone. Yeah, he's not playing. I think for me, this is more about, and this was really like, I don't know, maybe 2 weeks left in the regular season. North Texas fired their defensive coordinator. And like at that point, for me, it was like they were kind of looking ahead to 2025. Of course, they were trying to salvage the regular season, but they were looking ahead to 2025, get the new defensive coordinator in there. Morris entered the portal. Now they're looking for a quarterback. And so North Texas has really been focused going forward. Texas State on the other side is just, stability. G.J. Kinney signed a contract extension there at North Texas. Jordan McLeod so far has not entered the transfer portal. He had a great season last season at James Madison. You mentioned some inconsistencies with Texas State this year, but not for a lack of talent. I think if McLeod sticks around, Texas State can have a really good team next year. You mentioned it. North Texas's defense is not a unit that you can necessarily count on from what we've seen. And so Texas State's defense is much better. Therefore, I like Texas State. But let's just look at this from North Texas perspective. How do you feel like you stay in this game? I feel like clearly North Texas's identity is play fast on offense. So, yeah, you've got a backup quarterback in there, whatever. But our identity is we're going to go fast, and that's just what we're going to do. That's the only chance that we have to win this game is try to go fast and score more points. I just, even if they do that, I don't see that working out for them with the number 111 ranked defense, according to Sideline. So this is just one of those things. Could Texas State win by 10 points, somehow 7 points? Absolutely. That could happen. But I think on the range of outcomes, you've got a lot more times where Texas State just absolutely runs away with this game. This is being played in Dallas, by the way. This is being played at Gerald R. Ford at SMU. Yeah.
And to clarify for the viewer, I don't want people to think I'm like making something up on the spot here with this. It's more there's so much information I can't keep it straight. I see that we have Chandler Morris at not playing. I wasn't on the screen to tell me why. So it wasn't like I was like, I don't know if he's playing. It was no, I have that he's not playing. But we do have to make some assumptions. Viewer, of course, you're aware of the transfer reports. We talked about this last show. If you missed that, we are kind of guessing on some of that. We know the guys in the portal, but we're like, I don't know if he's playing or not.
Yes, just because they're in the portal, they definitely still could play. And it is, let's put it this way, it's much easier to find out if somebody has gone into the portal than it is finding out somebody has withdrawn from the portal or they have decided they're still going to play even while in the portal. So, there you go.
And what happens when you come out of a portal anyway, right? That's like a whole philosophical question. But and the other thing, of course, here, we are giving North Texas half home field advantage. And I saw that noted. I just knew it was in the DFW area. So just getting the details getting crisscrossed with all these bowl games here. Being relay the 14, Texas State, a great play. And then there is one Saturday afternoon game. But before we get to that, reminder, you can support the show for helping you make money. The Picks Only package, only $19.99 a month. First month can be half off if you use that promo code there. We really do appreciate you if you've been with us all season. If you've been with us on Dub Club at all, again, we do thank you so much for your support. That Saturday game, Buffalo and Liberty, and I guess the way this will play out is you'll have this game, and then you'll have this used to be the slot where the FCS championship used to be. Now we'll have this game, and then we'll have NFL games right afterwards on Saturday, and then on Monday night we'll have the FCS championship. So this will wrap up the bowl slate, with the exception of the last remaining 3 playoff games. Buffalo and Liberty, we've got this Buffalo winning by an average of 4.4. We're going to lay 2.5. Be a great pick because in Jared, we talk a lot about money lines versus spreads. Why are we laying 2.5 rather than the money line? Also, of course, why do you like Buffalo in this matchup? Again, where the opt-outs matter with Caden Salter already committed to Colorado.
Yeah. And I think the most important question is, why are we talking about Buffalo and Liberty at all? And the answer to that question is that I feel like it is only appropriate for this show that we end the college football season by talking about Buffalo and Liberty, because this is a show that if there is money to be made, we do not discriminate. We will talk about any game if we think that there is an edge and something interesting to be said. So that's why we're talking.
You don't win more money because more people know the school, more people watch the game, right? You win whatever you risk on there based off of the odds.
Yes.
Which is evident by the fact that both these teams are ranked outside the top 100, and this is after I guess a lot of opt-outs is really the problem. But I'll let you tell us more.
Yeah. And so that's the answer to the first question. The answer to the second question is I think you could get like minus 135, minus 140, minus 145, something in that range with Buffalo. And I mentioned on the last show that like minus 150 is kind of my cap whenever it comes to money lines during bowl season. I feel like that should come with an asterisk when both teams are ranked below number 100. I just don't want to be involved in laying any extra juice with 2 teams that are, potentially that bad, relatively speaking. So that's where we ended up with 2.5. Obviously, below 3, I still feel pretty good about it, laying the 2.5 with Buffalo. Now to the actual game and why I like Buffalo. Sideline has had a slight infatuation with Liberty all season. It has definitely been hit or miss on that. It's worked out for us. Sometimes it hasn't worked out for us. Sometimes.
It figured out much better at the end of the season than it did at the start. The start was the more rough. I think at some point in the middle, it just turned. It was like, no, we actually realized you're not that good.
Yeah. And so the fact that it is kind of flipped here and it is not showing favoritism toward Liberty says that there's a slight edge on Buffalo. That's something that catches my eye. But the other thing is that Caden Salter was one of the better non-Power 4 quarterbacks in the country this year. I mean, to your point, kind of the guy that, could Deion Sanders still go out and find somebody else to play quarterback for him next year? Absolutely. It's Deion Sanders. Don't ever put anything past him. But in theory, the idea that this is the guy that Deion Sanders has selected to be, the heir apparent at quarterback to Shedeur, I think says a lot about what a lot of the coaches think about his talent. And even as much as I like Jamie Chadwell, you're not going to just lose a quarterback like that and everything, go off as it has the entire rest of the season. I think Liberty's
behind him.
Yes, exactly. I have no idea actually who he has behind him. But I think that that's going to be a lot to overcome for Liberty. Their offense had some fits and starts to begin with. I think that just exacerbates those problems. And you never want to judge a game based on how motivated these teams are and how happy they are to be in these bowl games. But I can tell you, Buffalo, super excited after an 8-4 season to be in a bowl game. Liberty 8-3. I promise you, Liberty is not as excited to be here after being in the Fiesta
last
Bowl.
year.
Yeah, after being in the Fiesta Bowl or whatever they were in last year. So, I just think this is like the perfect storm of Buffalo's excited to be there. Liberty has lost a lot to the transfer portal. This is one of those games where I think the line was set based on the names, and they're trying to, I think they're trying to get you with this 2.5 number in my mind. I think this should be closer to like 3, 4. Obviously, sideline wouldn't say play it out to like 6, but like it would take a lot for me to play Liberty in this game. Is what I would say.
I probably would, and here's why. I hope this isn't labor too much here, but the map might be better than the model realizes, and here's why. Let me walk you through this here real quick. I'm just going to go back most recently. If I missed the MAC school here, I apologize to fans of that school. Miami of Ohio, model like Colorado State. Miami of Ohio won that game 43-17. You go back to before that, Arkansas State. The model leaned Arkansas State, but they were a 7.5-point dog. They won by a touchdown. Toledo. Models like, hey, the MAC's not that good. Take Pittsburgh. They were a 7-point favorite, lost it overtime. Probably should have won, but definitely shouldn't have covered. Northern Illinois, the model leading Fresno State on that one, thought it would be closer than the experts. Northern Illinois as a slight favorite, won by 8. I don't even know who's before this. I don't want to bore viewers here. Those are just games since the quarterfinals. Ohio one, I just kind of got that out of the corner of my eye.
Yep.
The MAC might be decent, might be a little bit better than we all realized, and it's not just me, but the market and the way the model views it as well. So if that's the case, and the MAC is a little bit better than the model realizes and the market's realized, then that means that maybe Buffalo should be favored by 6 or 7. It wouldn't be crazy because Salter being out, of course. That is the big. A big loss, like you said, that changes things a little bit because of how good he changes things a lot because of how good he is. So we like Buffalo here tonight too. This is one where I think you need to get in on before Monday morning. You never know with who's going to opt out at the last minute and what news is going to break, especially with bowl games. That stuff gets crazy. But that aside, I would bet sometime Monday on this game, it's going to get bet out. 3. And so I would just say, hey, is kind of as soon as you think you got the bankroll at this point here and you can spare it, go ahead and lock this one in. This one's the Saturday noon game. So we get to wrap up bowl season in the 2.5 with Buffalo. Only a B grade, but B grade pancakes if ever a thing exists. And that is our show.
Yeah, and this game is in the Bahamas. No weather issues.
There you
go. with
no weather issues. Buffalo really thrilled to be there. And if it's from Buffalo at this time, I mean, this
definitely.
Reminder, you can support the show by joining us on Dub Club. We really appreciate it if you consider that. Because Jared, parting words for the 2024 football season.
Yeah, it was a great season. Always fun. It was a great season from a financial perspective. So hope that y'all got in on that. It was good as always. I know college basketball is going on. Join us over on Dub Club. Got all the picks there for that. But I'm wearing my baseball hat. Baseball season's just around the corner. So we know our bread and butter here. Football season, baseball season is where we really enjoy it. Jake, we've got the college basketball for Jake and all of you crazy people that love college basketball. But hey, baseball season will be here before you know it.
Every year, I just feel crazier and crazier trying to predict what's going to happen in college basketball because that sport is bonkers. The way those things end, the way you just go completely off script haywire. College basketball is not for the faint of heart, I would say. That's all we've got then for you. Again, we do thank you for watching throughout this season. We'll have some college basketball here coming up in the new year, and then again baseball when we get to April. Otherwise, though, we again thank you for watching. We do wish you the best of luck. I remind you, you can eat your betting money, but please don't bet your eating money.